Welcome back to Whispers in the Darkness. Tonight, we journey across forgotten America rail tracks that hum when no trains run. Tunnels that scream through the mist, in towns where the living have long since moved on. Each story you're about to hear is based on a real location, a place you can still visit. If you dare, turn off the lights and listen closely, because sometimes the dead don't stay where they're buried. The haunted tracks of San Antonio locales in San Antonio, Texas. Say there's a railroad crossing where tragedy never left. The tracks cut through a quiet suburban road, flanked by brush and an old wooden fence. Nothing about it looks unusual, until you park your car on the incline. Back in the 1930s, a school bus full of children was struck here by a train during a dense morning fog. Witnesses say the driver never saw the engine until it was too late. Everyone on board driving children died instantly. Since then, people have come to this crossing at night to test the legend. You stop your car about 20 feet from the tracks, put it in neutral, and wait. At first, nothing happens. Then the car begins to roll forward, uphill, across the tracks. The feeling is unmistakable. Invisible hands pushing from behind. Locals sprinkle baby powder on their bumpers before the test. When they step out, they swear they see small handprints in the powder child-sized, smudged across the back, as if a dozen tiny palms pressed to save them. One man, a retired police officer, tried to debunk it. He parked his cruiser on the spot, engine off, camera rolling. The footage showed his car creeping uphill across the tracks. But when he reviewed the audio, something whispered just before the movement began, a faint, breathy voice saying, "Hold on tight." He left town 2 weeks later, citing personal reasons. Locals still drive out at dusk, headlights off, hearts pounding. The city eventually posted no trespassing signs to discourage thrill seekers. But they don't help. On foggy nights, drivers say they see flickers of white by the roadside children in outdated clothes, waiting for a bus that never comes. And when the wind cuts through the grass beside the tracks, it carries the faint ring of laughter, soft, distant, and gone before you can tell if it came from the fields or from the back seat of your own car. Close in line. They say the children of San Antonio never left those tracks, they just make sure no one else joins them. The ghost town of Helltown, Ohio, hidden deep within the forests of Summit County, Ohio, lies a place locals call Helltown. Though on old maps, it was simply Boston Township. The name changed after the government forced everyone to leave, and never explained why. In 1974, the US government bought out the entire area, claiming it was for a national park expansion. Families were given days to pack up generations of memories and leave. But after the evacuations, the buildings weren't torn down, they were boarded up and left to rot. And that's when the stories began. People driving the winding roads at night reported abandoned houses with candles still burning in the windows, and curtains that moved as if someone stood behind them. One truck driver swore he saw a church with upside-down crosses carved into its doors. Others told of headlights that chased them through the woods, bright, aggressive, and gone the second they turned around. The most feared road was Stanford Road, known by locals as the end of the world road. It ends suddenly at a steep drop into the valley. Teenagers used to dare each other to drive it at night, claiming that if you stopped at the edge and turned off your lights, someone or something would push your car toward the cliff. But there's one story that no one jokes about: the chemical spill. Some say the government closed the town because of a toxic leak that caused strange mutations in the wildlife. Campers have reported deer with human-like eyes and dogs that stand on 2 legs, watching from the tree line. In 1985, a group of local hikers went missing in those woods. When rescuers found their campsite, the tents were still zipped. Flashlights still on, but no one inside. Only their footprints circled the area, as if they had walked around their tents in confusion until they vanished. To this day, No one lives in Helltown. The road signs are gone, but the locals will still warn you if you ask for directions. They'll tell you that some nights you can see smoke rising from the forest and hear the faint sound of church bells. Even though the nearest church was demolished 40 years ago, Helltown, Ohio, isn't empty. It's just waiting for the last name to be crossed off its registry. And if you walk too far into those woods, you might notice something strange: footprints beside your own, matching your pace exactly. The abandoned Mercy Hospital in the industrial district of a small Midwestern city stands what's left of Mercy Hospital, a 5-story brick building sealed behind rusted fencing and condemned signs. But locals say the real reason it's closed has nothing to do with safety codes, and everything to do with what still walks the upper floors. Mercy Hospital opened in 1912 and treated the sick through 2 world wars. It was known for its charity and for taking patients others refused. The basement once served as an overflow ward during a tuberculosis outbreak. Thousands died there. But it wasn't until the 1970s that things turned darker. Nurses began reporting lights flickering even when the power was off. One woman claimed she saw a patient in a white gown standing in the elevator when the doors opened only to find the elevator shaft empty. Others described hearing their names whispered through the intercom after midnight, even when the switchboard was disconnected. By 1977, so many staff had quit that the hospital shut its doors. It's been empty ever since, at least officially. Urban explorers still sneak in through the broken loading bay doors. They describe the same smell: formaldehyde and mildew. Their flashlights catch murals of saints peeling off the walls. Old wheelchairs still lined against the hallway like someone might sit up any minute. In 2006, a paranormal team set up cameras on the top floor near what used to be the children's recovery wing. At 3:11 a.m., every monitor went white. When the video returned, the beds were visible, but something else had changed. All the bed rails which had been down were now raised. When they reviewed the audio, they caught a voice, calm, male, and close to the mic. It said, "Visitors must remain quiet." The building was demolished a year later, but neighbors still say they see pale lights drifting where the wards once stood. On some nights, ambulance sirens from the highway fade as they pass the site, almost like respect. Last winter, a maintenance worker clearing snow from the lot heard something strange behind him, the metallic squeak of a gurney wheel. He turned and saw tracks in the snow leading straight toward the empty air, where the emergency entrance used to be. He quit the next day. Closing line: Mercy Hospital is gone, but its patients never checked out. They just learned to wait without walls. The Screaming Tunnel in Niagara Falls, just outside Niagara Falls, Canada, lies a crumbling limestone tunnel locals call the Screaming Tunnel. It's short, barely 50 yards, but the way sound moves through it makes it feel endless. Even your footsteps come back wrong, stretched and whispered in. According to legend, the tunnel was once part of an old drainage line that connected to rural properties. Back in the early 1900s, a farmhouse nearby caught fire late one night. A young girl ran from the flames, her nightdress already burning, desperate for help. She made it as far as the tunnel before collapsing inside. By morning, only ashes and blackened stone remained. Since then, travelers claim that if you strike a single match in the center of the tunnel at midnight, the flame will snuff out instantly and a blood-curdling scream will echo through the walls. Locals used to test it. Teenagers would bring flashlights and nervous laughter. They'd light a match, and the air would seem to breathe in, pulling the flame away. Then came the scream. High, raw, unmistakably human, fading toward the farmhouse ruins. One investigator, a videographer named Alan T., spent a night recording inside. His camera captured no scream, only a gust of wind. But on playback, just before the gust, a child's voice whispered, "Don't let me burn." He never released the full footage. Only the still frame is lighter flickering beside an outline on the wall shaped like a small hand. Even today, people walking past at night say they hear faint sobbing that stops the moment you turn on the light. Moisture drips from the stone ceiling like sweat, and the smell of smoke lingers, though nothing has burned there in a century. The city posted warning signs and fenced the entrance, but the gate never stays locked. Each time work is welded shut, someone pries it open, again always from the inside. If you stand at the mouth of the tunnel and listen long enough, you'll hear a breeze sighing out of the dark like a slow breath. Some say that's just pressure changes in the limestone. Others know better. It's the tunnel remembering the night it screamed. Closing line, when the wind in Niagara sounds like someone crying. Locals say at ISNT the falls eerie hearing at S, the ton of asking for another match. The abandoned Disney park they never reopened. Everyone knows Disney parks are the happiest places on earth. But there's one the company never talks about, a tropical resort once called Discovery Island, hidden in the middle of Bay Lake, Florida. It was meant to be a paradise of birds, lagoons, and sunshine. What's left today looks more like a graveyard wearing a smile. Discovery Island opened in 1974 and closed quietly in 1999. Disney said it was for maintenance. Visitors staying at nearby resorts began noticing something strange on the water at night. Lights flickering on the island when no power lines ran there, and shapes moving between the trees. Former employees claimed the animals grew violent before the closure, birds attacking keepers. Snakes turning up dead with no wounds. One caretaker swore he found cages bent outward, as if something had forced its way out. After the shutdown, the island was left to rot. Kayakers who sneaked ashore years later described decaying walkways and signs still reading "Welcome Adventurers." In the main aviary, they found rows of broken cages and a single working generator humming beneath layers of dust. It shouldn't have had fuel, but it was still running. A Florida urban explorer known online as Turtle Tom posted photos of his 2010 trip there. The last image on his camera showed the path from the aviary to the old gift shop. In the window's reflection, there is something standing behind him, a tall figure in a faded animal costume with the eyes torn out. He deleted his channel 2 days later. Locals who live around Bay Lake say the island still hums after midnight. Some hear faint carnival music drifting across the water. Others see a single floodlight blink on and off 3 times before vanishing. Security boats refuse to approach. Their compasses spin wildly within 100 yards of shore. When Disney quietly filed paperwork transferring ownership of the land, it listed the reason for closure as biological contamination. No details were ever released. A handful of daredevils have tried to swim to the island since none lasted more than a few minutes. They all describe the same thing. The water turns warmer near the shore, and they feel something brush their legs. Not fish, but fabric. They say the magic of Disney never dies, but on Discovery Island, it's the silence that keeps smiling. The bridge where no one returns, Goatman's Bridge, just outside Denton, Texas, stands an old iron truss bridge built in 1884. Officially, it's called Old Alton Bridge, but no one calls it that anymore. To locals, it's simply Goatman's Bridge, and they'll tell you, if you cross it after midnight, you might not come back the same. The legend begins with a man named Oscar Washburn, a goat farmer who lived nearby in the 1930s. He was well liked and known for selling the finest goat milk and cheese in the county, but in that era, being successful and being black was a dangerous mix. One night, a group of men dragged Oscar from his home and took him to the bridge. They slipped a noose around his neck and pushed him over the edge. But when they looked down, the rope swung empty. Furious, they stormed back to his cabin only to find it burning to the ground. His family vanished without a trace. From that night on, the bridge was cursed. Visitors say if you stop your car on the bridge, turn off the engine, and whisper Goatman, you'll hear hooves on the wooden planks. Some have seen 2 red eyes staring from the shadows, glowing like embers. Others described the stench of decay and the sound of heavy breathing just behind them. In 1999, two paranormal investigators captured footage of mist rising from the creek below the bridge. In the shape of that mist was the faint outline of a figure with horns, standing upright, watching. The tape cut out seconds later. Police have also responded to calls from people claiming to see a man walking along the bridge leading a herd of goats in silence. When officers arrived, they found hoof prints, but no animals, no man, and no sound except the creak of old iron in the wind. Local teenagers still test the legend, but not for long. One group left their truck on a bridge overnight as part of a dare. When they returned, the hood was covered in deep scratches, claw marks, burned into the paint like acid. If you ever visit, you'll notice something unsettling. Birds don't nest near the bridge. The air always feels heavier there, like it's thick with heat even in the middle of winter. And if you cross to the other side, some say the forest goes silent, as if it's waiting. Goatman's Bridge still stands in Denton, but those who cross it say they leave something behind, and sometimes it follows them home. The Asylum, hidden beneath the woods deep in the backwoods of Pennsylvania. Long past where cell service dies and the road turns to dirt, there's a forgotten structure that almost no one admits exists. Locals call it the Asylum beneath the woods. There are no signs, no courtesan-only stories whispered by hunters and hikers who stumbled upon something they shouldn't have. They say it looks like a hill at first glance, but beneath the ivy and soil are crumbling concrete walls, old iron doors, and a staircase that descends into complete darkness. The story goes that in the 1940s, a small private psychiatric hospital operated on that land, away from public eyes. Officially, it was for experimental rehabilitation. Unofficially, it was where unwanted patients disappeared. Records showed the facility closed suddenly in 1952 after a fire destroyed the main building. But survivors from nearby towns reported hearing screams echoing from the forest for weeks after the fire was put out. In the early 2000s, two explorers from Pittsburgh decided to search for proof. They documented the ruins on film-thick concrete walls, rusted beds, and graffiti warning "Don't go down." In their footage, you can hear them laughing nervously until one of them says, "Did you hear that?" A voice slow, hoarse, almost human whispers. Still here, the camera jerks, lights flash, and the feed cuts out. That was the last anyone saw of the explorers. Their car was later found on a log-in road. Doors open, keys still in the ignition. The footage leaked online, but was quickly taken down. Today, hikers who venture near that part of the forest claim they hear metallic clanging beneath the ground, like someone dragging a chain across an empty hallway. Others smell burning antiseptic or hear faint crying through the soil. Dogs refuse to go near the area, some even collapse shaking. Forest rangers deny there's any structure hidden out there. But satellite maps show a perfect square of land where trees refuse to grow, like the earth itself is still rejecting what was buried below. They say the asylum burned to the ground, but on cold nights, the forest still breathes smoke. And if you listen close, the ground whispers back. The cemetery that moves at night in a quiet farming town outside Savannah, Georgia. There's a cemetery that the locals avoid once the sun goes down. It's officially known as Old Magnolia Burial Ground, but most people call it the cemetery that moves at night. It started with the caretakers. They swore the headstones were shifting positions overnights and turned sideways. Others leaned in strange directions, as if the earth beneath them was breathing. Locals laughed at first, blaming soft ground and storms. But when the town surveyor took photos of the plots, the next day's images didn't match. Entire rows of graves had subtly rearranged themselves. The oldest headstones date back to 1821. Many of them belonged to victims of yellow fever, buried in haste. Their graves were shallow and their coffins unmarked. Over time, floods from the nearby marsh would wash away the soil, and bones would surface. The town built a brick wall to keep the cemetery contained, but that wall never stayed straight. Each year it bows outward, as if something inside is pressing against it. In 1978, a group of teenagers dared each other to camp inside the cemetery. They parked near the gate and brought a Polaroid camera. Sometime after midnight, they heard stones scraping, like heavy objects dragging through the dirt. They snapped a photo toward the sound. In the flash, one of them swore he saw a figure crouched behind a headstone in, gray and wrong. When the picture developed, it showed dozens of headstones, but none where they had actually been. Every grave marker was in a different spot. By morning, their truck was gone. The police found it 3 days later at the edge of town, doors open, headlights dead, seats covered in fine white dust. The teenagers were never seen again. Modern ghost hunters still visit, leaving motion sensors and cameras overnight. Every single one records the same anomaly: short bursts of static followed by the sound of rocks shifting, then silence. And each time they return, one gravestone stands in a new position, usually closer to the gate. Locals believe the ground itself is restless, that the spirits buried too close together are still trying to find room to lie down. In Old Magnolia Cemetery, the dead don't stay still, they just move over to make space for the next one. The Devil's Tramping Ground in North Carolina, hidden in the pine forests of Chatham County, North Carolina, lies a barren circle of dirt nearly 40 feet wide. Nothing grows there, no grass, no weeds, not even moss. Locals call it the Devil's Tramping Ground, and they swear it's where the devil himself walks in circles each night, plotting his next act of evil. Scientists have tested the soil dozens of times, but nothing explains it. The earth isn't poisoned, just dead. Every time they replant grass, it sprouts for a few days, then turns black and brittle. The oldest legend dates back to the 1700s. Settlers traveling through the woods heard footsteps pacing around their camp at night, slow and heavy, crunching in a perfect circle. When they checked in the morning, their wagons had been pushed from the ring and their campfires smothered cold. Nothing, not even animals, would cross the bare patch. In the 1920s, a group of hunters decided to spend the night in the center of the circle. They built a fire, cooked supper, and laughed at the idea of ghosts. At sunrise, only their rifles and tents remained. The men were never found. Their footprints, however, circled the patch again and again, just like the story said the devil does. Modern campers have tried to stay overnight. Phones die, compasses spin, and even GPS maps glitch, as if the coordinates are rewritten. One man left a brand new tent in the middle of the circle as an experiment. When he returned, the tent was shredded and dragged outside the boundary. Yet there were no animal tracks, no human prints, just the same smooth ring of dirt. The strangest part: people who visit often describe the same feeling, that something unseen is pacing just behind them. Never breaking the circle, dogs howl and pull away. Even insects go silent once you step inside. Some say it's radiation. Others call it a gateway to another realm. But locals still warn travelers not to camp there, because every so often, the red clay shows something new. A single set of footprints burned deep into the soil, circling endlessly until they vanish into nothing. The Devil's Tramping Ground stays empty, because whatever walks that circle each night has no reason to stop. The Black Forest village that disappeared in the heart of Germany's Black Forest, there once stood a small settlement known on 19th century maps as Waldhausen, a cluster of homes, a church, and a sawmill surrounded by pines so thick the sun barely reached the ground. Today, the name is gone, and the forest has reclaimed everything. But according to locals, it didn't vanish naturally. The last record of Waldhausen appears in a parish book from 1878. A traveling priest noted that when he arrived to perform mass, no living soul was found, though smoke still rose from the chimneys. Every door was open, every meal unfinished. Tools lay mid-work, chairs knocked over. candles still burning. Days later, a search party from the next town entered the village. They found no signs of struggle, no footprints, no blood, just a silence so deep it made the air vibrate. The church bell hung cracked, though no storm had passed. In the cellar beneath the church, they discovered lines carved into the stone floor, circles, runes, and what looked like names scratched out one by one. Over the next year, travelers through that part of the forest began reporting strange lights, blue-white orbs weaving through the trees. Hunters claimed to hear faint voices speaking an old dialect of German that no one used anymore. And on some nights, a faint chorus could be heard in the distance, like a congregation humming a hymn they couldn't stop singing. Modern hikers who try to locate Waldhausen can't agree on where it stood. GPS systems freeze, compasses spin, and paths that appear on one hike are gone the next. One documentary crew that went searching in 2012 found a single building foundation and what looked like the remains of a church altar buried in moss. On their last night there, one of the crew woke up to find their campfire extinguished and a small wooden cross laid across their chest. Locals in nearby villages refused to talk about it. When asked, they simply say, the forest wanted them back. Satellite imagery shows a perfect, circular clearing in the middle of the trees, no undergrowth, no wildlife, as if the ground itself remembers where the people stood before they vanished. They say the Black Forest keeps what it's owed sometimes. When the wind blows just right, it carries the sound of a bell that hasn't rung in over a century.